Thank you, Margaret. As I was saying earlier, it's just my privilege and honor to be here and to serve on the board of Less Cancer. And man, how awesome is it
Janie,
to...
I'm sorry. This is a bad mic right there.
How awesome it is to follow behind the distinguished Congressman Israel. So I want to start off and just give you a little bit of context about why I'm here and why I'm passionate about the work that I do and that we do collectively. I, too, have a personal story. I've been a nurse in nursing for 40 years. I lost my mother when I was 10 years old. I lost my father when I was 35 years old. My mother died of a brain tumor. My father died of metastatic lung cancer. We didn't know what we know now about the dangers of tobacco. Between my mother and my father, I was probably exposed to 3 packs a day. My mother was a beautiful smoker. She had long fingernails and long fingers, and she would do those fancy smoke rings. And I remember that distinctly. And she smoked menthol Salems. So when I picked up the habit, and I mean that, I was addicted for a year in graduate school. Guess what my cigarettes were? Salem, menthol Salems, because I remembered them from my mother. My father was an ugly smoker. He was a hacker. I mean, he was lighting up those cigarettes before he even put his feet on the ground. My father died when I was 35 years old, and I was a nurse. I had already dropped my cigarettes, but I never had the conversation with my father about his tobacco use. I made a promise to myself that day. Of course, I was too young when my mother died, but I made a promise to myself that day. Those that I care for, I'm going to have the tobacco conversation, and I haven't stopped. Every one of my students, and there's going to be a busload of them come in from the University of Virginia, where I had the opportunity to teach for a number of years, they know I talk about tobacco use and how to help others quit. But today, I want to talk about 2 of the alternative nicotine delivery devices that I am very, very concerned about. Before I do that, though, I want to put into context of where we are as a country that is looking at some pretty grave statistics. And I'm saying this out of my heart as a nurse with compassion to promote health and wellness and prevent cancer. I say this because I want each and every one of us to be able to have clean air and clean bodies and live healthy. 52 years ago, my hero, Surgeon General Everett Koop, came out with the landmark document about smoking and health. That was in 1964. At that time, in the United States, we had 42 prevalence rate of individuals that smoked. Now we have 18%. So that's really, really good to look at how we have declined those numbers. But that's still too many. 42 million individuals smoke per year. 500,000 die per year. That costs each of us in this room $300 million of cost, whether that's indirect cost or direct cost. And I want you to listen to this piece. $300 million are spent every year by the tobacco industry marketing a deadly product. So just to put it a little bit more in context about where I am now in the state of Kentucky, and I know that Dr. John Groopman is going to be talking about my beloved state of Kentucky, but we have some challenges in Kentucky. I live in the belly of the beast, if you will. We are ranked right up there at the top of having the highest smoking prevalence rate. We have 27% of our prevalence of our citizens in Kentucky who smoke. We also have almost 1 million, that means 1 million individuals that are smoking. And we look at nearly 9,000 that die every year in the state of Kentucky because of smoking. That is what keeps me going. We are the #1 state in the country for lung cancer, so we have a lot of work to do in the state of Kentucky. So let me talk a little bit more about the alternative devices that are out there that are quite concerning. This is over and above. We do not ever give up on our concerns about tobacco use and how to help individuals quit smoking. But there is something that's very troubling that's happening throughout our country, and in particular with the tobacco industry, with what we refer to as disruptive innovation. And we're seeing practices by the tobacco industry that took place way back in the 60s and the 70s and starting to promote healthier cigarettes. And now we're hearing about promoting a healthier way to quit smoking and to use an alternative tobacco. An alarming report came out from the CDC this year. We now know that within just 1 year, our prevalence rates of electronic cigarette use by the youth has tripled. In 2013, it was 4%, and now in 2014, 14% of our youth are using electronic cigarettes. This is extremely concerning. We know that the tobacco industry now is operating at $2.5 billion of revenue a year. We know that right now, just think about this, the targeted advertising that's going on out there, regardless of what you read or is told, is not toward adults, but it's toward our youth. And look at all of these youthful faces that we have in front of us today. It's very scary when you think about $115 million a year are spent in marketing electronic cigarettes. And those are being marketed to youth. Let's just be real clear. You've seen the flavors, Fruit Loops, Captain Crunch, gummy bears. Are those targeting adults? I don't think so. So to me, it's very unethical, it's immoral, and we've got to do everything we can to bring it to a stop. Now, there is some good news with all of this. We do know that the safety cap bill has been passed by Senate and House, and it's sitting on President Obama's desk. That way we can keep the electronic cigarettes that are known to break and leak and spill out nicotine on children will now have the safety caps. The bad news is that the FDA, our government, has not been working hard enough to get electronic cigarettes regulated. We really don't know exactly what's in them. We really do not know exactly how harmful they are, but the data that has been coming out is telling us what we're evaluating is not good. The toxins are clearly coming out, the dangers, the data is coming forward. It is a wild, wild west out there, and we've got to get this under control. For 5 years now, a bill has been sitting on President Obama's desk for us to get our electronic cigarettes regulated by the FDA so we can start protecting the health of the public and especially our youth. We know that data has shown for quite some time, and it just keeps escalating out. One of the most recent showed that, and this came out in the Journal of Pulmonology, that our youth that vape, that use electronic cigarettes, those that are doing it, a year later, they are 3 times more likely to pick up cigarettes. So then we have the dual harm effect. That's compared to youth that do not smoke or use electronic cigarettes. Another study just recently came out from the New England Journal of Medicine that tells us that when some of these electronic devices, they have variable battery voltages in them. Those that have the high voltages, what we're seeing is that there's a higher release of some toxins, chemicals called hemiacetals. It's kind of like a hidden formaldehyde. And formaldehyde is known to be not only in our cigarettes, but certainly in our electronic cigarettes. Formaldehyde is carcinogenic. What they have found is that in these electronic cigarettes, once they start heating up, complex chemical reactions occur. And for this particular finding, it is known that propylene glycol, which is nothing more than antifreeze, and glycerol have an intense reaction. And with that reaction, these hemiacetals are released. Now just listen to this for just a minute. In this study, and it was based in the laboratory science, it was found that predominantly we know that when individuals use electronic cigarettes, that's about 3 milliliters that's being consumed a day. They found in that 3 milliliters, or 3 cc's, 14 milligrams of formaldehyde. Now, we shouldn't have any formaldehyde in our bodies. You compare that to smoking 20 cigarettes or having 1 pack of cigarettes smoked a day, that's 3 milligrams of formaldehyde. So you can do the math, and you can see this is not good. This is deadly. So let me start explaining a little bit more about the other big concern I have. So when I'm not worried about electronic cigarette use, I'm worried about hookah bars and what's happening across the country with smoking hookah pipes. CDC came out with a report, and it shows within the past 5 years we have doubled the prevalence rates looking at the youth with their use of hookah pipes, from 5% to 10%. That's entirely too many individuals smoking hookah pipes. It's fun. I hear my students talk about it. I've got them right across the street from the University of Kentucky. You go in, you sit down, you're in a lounge. It's like going to a restaurant. It's cool, it's fun, it's the social thing. It's a deadly thing. We know, and science has shown this, we just completed a report. It's a meta-analysis of 17 studies, and this was reported in the Public Health, the Journal of Public Health report, that says just one session, and typically one session of smoking a hookah pipe is equivalent to 45 minutes. In that 45-minute session, that is equivalent to smoking 20 cigarettes, 1 pack. During that time, individuals are exposed to 25 times more tar than smoking 1 cigarette. They are exposed to 2.5 more times of nicotine than smoking 1 cigarette, and they are exposed to 10 times more carbon monoxide than smoking 1 cigarette. Electronic cigarettes and hookah pipes are on the rise, and it does not look like we're going to be slowing down anytime too soon. So we really need everyone's help and their attention to this. Help us to help our government see that the FDA has got to do their job, protect public health, and promote comprehensive smoke-free regulations. We also need to look at ways that we can, until this gets off the desk of President Obama, what can we do locally and at the state level with taxes, as well as looking at how we can do a better job with educating and advocating for health. We know that if we start ramping it up with our excise tax and make that be included with electronic cigarettes as well as hookah pipes, all types of tobacco, research has shown for every 10% increase in an excise tax, there is 7% decrease prevalence use by the youth. And then overall, it's 5% reduction overall. So I invite you to join our fight. Let's educate, let's advocate, and let's help eradicate harmful effects of tobacco and of alternative nicotine delivery devices. Thank you.